Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Philosophy 135. I'm your instructor, Joel Hunter, and I'm looking forward to spending a little bit of time today with you in our very first official Periscope. I'm calling it Physcope, as you can see in the hashtag up there. What I'd like to do is, first of all, make sure that some of you are starting to check in. So as you arrive, if you would please just note your name in all caps, just your first name is fine. Throw some hearts, whatever, just to indicate that you're there. So I can see also, I think it'd be helpful if we talk about how to set up your Periscope to get the most experience out of it. So in the bottom right corner, there's a little man, and the little man has some settings that you can tinker with. If you want to protect some of your privacy, then feel free to go ahead and turn the location off. There's a thing you can toggle there for that. You can share on Twitter and trying to remember what the other setting is. I don't remember. But have a look at those settings. Go ahead and mess with those if you want to. But the other thing to know is that we will be doing this weekly, and I'm thinking of doing an extra one around about the week before your first exam, probably before each exam, because I want to do an extra review session with you. Probably not enough time to go over content, which is what these are going to be about, as well as do reviews for your exams. So I'll probably throw in an extra one. Of course, I'll make an announcement about that in due course. So let's start, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about me. Of course, I put that on the Canvas homepage, so you can read about that. You can follow links. You can check out all the stuff that, all my tracks that I've left on the interwebs, and feel free to, to connect with me on anything there that you see. But I've been teaching for 15 years. I have a PhD in philosophy. My specialty is philosophy of science and phenomenology, which is a branch of 20th century continental philosophy. That's philosophy that is mainly rooted in the continent of Europe. But I've taught a lot of undergraduate philosophy courses, and actually a lot of other kinds of courses too that involve philosophy. I always do philosophy in my classes. So I hope you're excited about this. I think it's going to be a challenge, first of all, because it's an online philosophy class, which is kind of weird. But we're going to use tools like this, like Periscope, to try to make it a good experience for you so that you do have some dialogue going on, because that's really at the heart of good philosophy. A good philosophy experience is dialogue, is exchange. All right, so here's what I'd like to do to start with. If you would please give me a little bit of feedback here in your feed. You can type in a message. So type in a message. Yes or no, this is your first philosophy class ever. Go ahead and go. Yes, no, first philosophy class. I'll start. No, not for me. Anybody there? Anybody there in the class? Can you use that tool? Getting 13. Let me see here. Let me get the feed. Okay, the chat is not hidden, so that's good. All good there. Are you hearing me? First of all, do this. Give me a couple hearts if you hear me. I'm afraid now that my sound isn't working. Any hearts out there? Double tap. Pretty please. I wonder if I have done something with my settings. No, I see you. Okay, so I'm pulling up the list of people who are there. So I see there are people here from the class, so that's cool. And I'm wondering why I'm not seeing your comments and hearts and stuff. I wonder if somehow I disabled that. I'm going to have to take it on faith that you're there then, and that you're trying to interact. Okay, that may be on my end. I'm sorry, but maybe check your settings too and see if there's something that's disabled in the Twitter or whatever the means of typing in a comment is. Okay, if you would. Well, I'm going to plunge ahead because I know there are people there, so let's do that. The first thing to know is that if there's anything in this that you want to come back to and review, you'll get a chance to do that because I'm going to have it recorded and it is going to be available on YouTube. Probably have it up by later this afternoon, and as well as people who can't make it. So in the future, if we have a session that you miss, that you just can't show up for, that's fine. I'm going to make sure that it always is accessible to you. So be aware of that. The next thing is some ground rules, which now I'm not sure that they matter because we're not getting any interaction. I'm not seeing anything on my screen from you. But in the future, if not today, then make sure when you want to pose a question that you lead with 2 question marks and put your name in all caps and then your question, okay? So 2 question marks, name in all caps, then your question. And what I'll try to do in the Q&A sessions is go back and forth with you and cover as many of them I can. If I can't get to all of them, then what I'll do, since I'm recording it and I'm capturing the comments too, is I will follow up with you on Canvas for any of those questions that I don't get to live. Okay, so that's kind of the ground rules. Let's see. Next thing is let's talk about the syllabus. So the syllabus is your tour book. It is your guidebook. It is your instruction manual for the class. It has lots of information about what we're going to be doing and course objectives, learning outcomes. It talks about your textbooks, which you should have. So there's the first one, Fundamentals of Ethics by Schaefer-Landau. And then the book that we'll be using in the second half of the class mostly. We'll have a couple readings in the first half of the class too. But this is The Ethical Life, also by Schaefer-Landau. So those are your 2 books that you'll need. So let me talk about what your weekly workload is going to be like. First bit of news is I'm going to scratch the online discussion assignment. Now, if I were seeing hearts right now, I think it would just explode with hearts, right? Because that assignment, as I was looking over what its value, what I could reasonably put as a value for it, which is only 13% of the class, it isn't a really fair amount of value for what the workload is if you were to do that. So I'm going to scratch that assignment. Now, what I'm going to do is put something slightly different in its place because there is a particular skill that I was aiming for you to gain through that assignment, and that is the ability to compose good arguments. That's what philosophy does. We deal with concepts, we make judgments, and we use arguments. And so you really are not going to get a good philosophical education if you don't know how to make arguments. So what I'd like you to do is be on the lookout probably tomorrow or Thursday for a revision to the syllabus, and then I'm going to take down the online discussion assignment, and in its place I'll put a different kind of assignment, and it's probably going to be, although this is not final yet, but what I'm thinking I'm going to do is a group project where I'll put you in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, and I will have you step through the mini argument assignment so that we can sort of peer collaborate on how to compose good arguments, how to analyze them, because you'll be analyzing each other's arguments, how to criticize them constructively, and then how to revise your arguments to make them better based on the critique that you get. And that's a really important process in doing philosophy, and we all have to do it. I've been doing philosophy for 15 years. I've written articles and stuff and had them published. You have to go back and revise. No one gets it right the first time. There's no Mozart in philosophy. So that's what I want you to be on the lookout for, is the change in the online discussion assignment. And what I'm going to be looking for there is your participation in that assignment. So I'm not going to measure your performance in this new assignment, or this different assignment, I should say. I'm going to see how you engage, you put out your own argument in the assignment, and then how you respond to the work of others, how you come around to revising your argument. I'm going to be looking at how you do that, and every now and then I would probably chime in to give you some guidance, answer questions, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I'm thinking that probably the best way to get the particular skill that I want you to work on in the most effective way in a reasonable amount of time is going to be through something like this. But like I said, I haven't absolutely decided yet, but I'll make sure that that I've made a decision and updated that for you on Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, so there will be point value. You will be assessed on participating in it, but not like the online discussion. That was just too much. Okay, so thumbs up there. Then the other weekly component is you will get some kind of note from me in an announcement, and it'll have mainly bullet points on things to look for, things to focus on in the week's readings. And so I'm not going to actually just go over that in the Periscope sessions. What I'd rather do is expect that you've looked at that, and then we can go over any questions you have about that, and then I can elaborate on anything that you're worried about for the week's assignments. That's the way I hope that this kind of thing will work. Okay, number next is the quizzes. So yeah, this is the main part of what you'll be doing. Now, to do well on the quizzes, I want you to take to heart the close reading and annotation handout that I provided to you last week. Now, in that handout, I give you a number of definitions, examples, or at least I point you to good examples, and other resources, including stuff that I've written on my own website, right back there, www.joelhunterphd.com, and as well as external links that are very good about explaining the process of close reading. Now, what's the opposite of close reading? The opposite of close reading is beach reading. It is, the technical word might be desultory reading. It is reading that is done to pass the time, to distract you. Close reading is done with intention. It is done for the sake of seeking understanding, to grapple with difficult problems and questions. Now, that can be any kind of text. It can be a textbook in chemistry that you have to read closely. And the way to think about the text that you read, and I'm talking here about the main text that you'll be using, but also when we get to the practical ethical problems in the second half of the class, that too. What you want to think about to get in the mindset of close reading is you want to imagine, visualize that you're in a dialogue with the author. It's not a one-way experience if you're doing close reading, because what you're doing is you're coming from a posture of wanting to know, of wanting to understand what is in this text. And the author is telling you stuff, is making claims, is constructing arguments, is asking questions of his or her own. And your job then is to challenge, to question, to interrogate that author as if he were in the room with you, reading alongside you, or he was just telling you the things that you're going to be reading. And what that does is it gets you to focus on the key terms, the key phrases, the key sentences, the key claims. And those become highlighted for you. And that's what you need to understand. That's where you need to make sure that you understand what they mean, what the terms mean, what the implications of the claim are. If it's an argument, how the premises, how the preceding claims connect to the conclusion, how they support the conclusion, to understand the logic, in other words. Those are the things that happen in close reading, and it happens by you questioning, having a posture of questioning and interrogation, and that is like being in a dialogue with the author. Hey, what do you mean when you say X, when you say hedonism? What does that mean? What are the implications if that is the best, most plausible value theory? What are the implications of that? That's the kind of thinking that you're doing, And so you're looking then in the text to answer those kinds of questions. Does that make sense? I would see lots of hearts if I could see my hearts. Okay, so that's close reading. Now, alongside close reading comes annotation. So I think it's helpful to have a system. And I linked to a series of posts that I did on this that take you through an excerpt from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, where I show you what my text looks like when I was working on a paper called Kierkegaard's Mirror of Erised. If you know that little episode in the first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, about Harry's encounter with the Mirror of Erised, it's really rich philosophically, existentially, and so I wrote a paper about that. Now, as part of that process, to grapple with what I thought, hey, this is really interesting, is one of those things when I first read it, it was like, whoa, this is a really creative, artistic explanation or illustration of a principle that I'm familiar with or that's intriguing. That's often the kinds of thing that happens when you do a close reading. Something jumps off the page and makes you go, whoa, wow, or huh? And those are the things that you want to circle, you want to underline, you want to put a star in the margin, because those are the things that you probably need to come back to work over and maybe even challenge. So look at my example that I go through from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and it's just my system. It doesn't have to be your system, but it's one that works for me. But come up with your own system for annotating and get your book and then go crazy in the margins. I probably can't find the margin real quick. So yeah, like right here in the very opening thing, I wrote definition in the margin because there the author defines what ethics is. Good to know. By the way, for your quizzes, that's the kind of thing that you should focus on. Most of your questions on the quizzes are multiple choice, multiple answer, and true false. And so if you focus on those bolded terms or any time that there's a definition, make sure that you know those because those are definitely going to show up on your quizzes and your exams. Okay, so circling back to close annotating and, close reading and annotating. If you have any questions after going through those materials and trying to apply it on your own, let me know and I can follow up with you about any difficulties you're facing or further questions you have. But I really encourage you to practice that. It will help you immensely as you prepare yourself to take the week's quiz and certainly as you go back for 3-4 chapters before when you have to review for an exam to have a well-annotated text. Now, there's a further step you can take. I also recommend this, although I haven't made as much of an issue about it in the materials I've sent to you. But one thing it's helpful to do once you've done the close reading and annotating is to take that material and paraphrase it in your own words. And that means you write it down in a journal or a notebook or something, a napkin, whatever. But paraphrase. Take your notes where you've scratched down a question or you've scribbled something in the margin, where you're posing a question or a problem with something that you read, and then paraphrase it, expand on it, elaborate on it. That's a very helpful technique to internalize the material, and that is what's going to give you more confidence and security going into the assessment part of things. But it also is what makes philosophy rewarding is when you grapple with really persistent, difficult questions that humans have grappled with for a long, long time. And they're important questions. I mean, it would be nice to know the best answers to ethical and moral questions. And so that's what you're doing if you take the time to do close reading and annotating and then journaling your paraphrases and your own thoughts in response to your own notes. Okay, so I've talked about that quite a bit. Let me see. So one thing on the syllabus is to make sure that you review the policies, and if you have any questions about those, things like late assignments, email, other kinds of accommodations, let me know if you have any questions about those, because those are obviously important. Next thing, before we get to a Q&A that I'm afraid is not even going to happen because I'm not seeing the questions. And I really apologize for this. I thought that I had it worked out. I thought I had that working at least in the test, but Evidently not. Okay, schedule. So if you look on the back, let's see if I can get this late, pretty good here. If you look in the last 2 pages of your syllabus, you've got everything you need to have for the entire semester. Now, I've put in each week that there was an online discussion assignment that was due, but obviously I've announced now that that is not going to be due anymore. And so what I'll do is I'll make a slight revision. I'll certainly take out all of the online discussion things being due so it's not confusing when I revise the syllabus for you. And then I'll put in, or I'll give a handout for what the substitute is going to be for those discussions. Okay, but everything else is as put here on the syllabus. I don't anticipate any other changes. This week you're doing the introduction and then the hedonism chapters 1 and 2 in your text. Next week is going to be desire theory. So you'll be looking at that, desire satisfaction, chapters 3 and 4. And that's it for the value theory unit. Then we'll move on into normative ethics starting in week 3. Okay, then the exciting part is after, let's see, is it exam 1? So exam 1, we still have some normative ethics to do, but then after exam 2, we will do the practical problems, the big moral problems. So just running through these, what we're going to be talking about. There's 2 chapters on enhancing human beings. So we look at ethical arguments for and against, say, genetic enhancement of human beings. So if you've heard of transhumanism, things like that, that would be relevant to what we'll be talking about that week. Week 13 will be abortion. Of course, that's been in the news quite a bit lately, so that'll be, I'm sure, an interesting discussion to see what philosophers have argued for and against. Certainly legal philosophers are part of those readings. So we'll have that on week 13. Week 14 is terrorism and torture. Also, certainly relevant to current events. I think you'll find that a rich set of readings, and it'll be interesting to go through those. And then the last one that I selected for us is week 15, the moral status of animals. And so we'll do things on animal rights for that last official class discussion, or class readings and so on. But then you'll have your final exam after that. Woohoo. Okay, so I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. And now, if it were possible, and I'm going to try one more time, just push my little man here to see if I'm going to do this. Okay, so that says hi chat. This says show chat. Hello. Okay, so here's who I see. I see hi Mary, hi Haley, hi Nathan, hi Rachel, hi Amber, hi Nicole, hi Corinna. And so that's who I see who has followed me from the class. So I know you're there. But I'm still not seeing. Okay, one more time. Let's try this again. Can you do the double tap and let me see if any hearts come up? Any questions? No, nothing. Okay, I am so sorry about that part of it. This attempt to be interactive has failed. But I will work out the kinks for the next session that we'll have, and I will let you know when the next one's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to have it at the same time. You know, having 10 out of 35 students or so. A third, that's not too bad. I was hoping for half, and so I may tinker a little bit with the schedule if I can see if about half the class could show up. That would be great. But if not, I may just keep it at this time because I know at least I've got 10 who can show up. And I appreciate your time for doing this, and I hope this was helpful. I think it would be even more helpful if I could answer your questions that you have. But here's what I want you to do. After we're done here, I would like you to send me your questions that you've had. Hopefully, you've either remembered them or you've noted them as we've been talking here, as I've been talking, and you can send me then your questions by email. So I don't want to leave that any pressing questions that you have unanswered. So please do contact me about anything we covered today, or about anything else that we didn't cover that you want to hear about. I'd be glad to go over that with you. Okay, so as a last word, your quiz is up. It's 20 questions, and you have to have that completed by Sunday. So make sure that you get that done. And I will probably put up what I called an inventory on the syllabus. It's not a graded assignment, but it will count it'll count for your lowest quiz. So it's a way to substitute your lowest quiz grade, drop that, and substitute it for the inventory. But I'll get that up later. It's not a pressing thing. And the other piece of business for today, to take from today is that there's no online discussion assignment. So please ignore that on Canvas right now. And I will take it down and I will replace it with a different assignment that is nowhere near as onerous as the one that I put up for you. And I hope that will work out for you. And thank you for tuning in. And I will talk to you again next week, sometime, to be announced. And so look for that and send those questions, and let's get going on some philosophy. Talk to you later. Bye.